Good morning, everyone. You're all very welcome to this morning's webinar. It's great to see over 50 players on the webinar this morning, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation today. Great news last week that we're all back on the pitches, so we'll have more updates in the next couple of weeks in relation to academy squads and stuff like that. It's probably looking at late September when the club championships and stuff are over, but that's not confirmed. So we'll know a little bit more over the next couple of weeks in relation to what's happening. This morning, the webinar is going to be looking at team play and the power of we, and I suppose culture as regards being part of a team and the importance of that. Kevin Spain from the Coola Club in Dublin will be doing the presentation. We're delighted to have Kevin on board. Kevin is also a GPO in Aero Greystones in Kilcool. He's also part of the Dermot Early Youth Leadership Initiative that runs from Croke Park in memory of Dermot Early Senior. We will also have Matthew Ging join us later on. Matthew would have been a player who's came through the GCA system over the last couple of years. So he would have started off under 13, and he's currently on the under 20 football squad. We'd also encourage everyone today, and we're going to start just after Kevin introduced himself as well, to interact in the presentation. So we'd encourage you to use the chat option as much as possible. We have a number of tasks and stuff like that in the presentation, so we would like you to use the chat option. The chat option is there on your screen there beside the little hand. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with using chat, probably more so than me. So can we use the chat as much as possible on any of the tasks that's involved? We will have a number of prizes and stuff like that in relation to the players that contribute most in the chat, or maybe get some of the questions right first. I'll announce that through the group. So Philly will put that up on the hurling groups, and I'll put it up on the football groups there on Monday. So until I go through all the information on the chat after the presentation, I won't know that. So there'll be little bits of stuff like Wicklow shorts and socks and Wicklow sweaters and hoodies and stuff like that. So I'll announce them on Monday after the presentation. The presentation should take about 45 to 50 minutes. As I said, I'm encouraging everyone to use the chat options on that. And I suppose when Kevin is introducing himself as well, if we don't mind, if we can start using the chat box and just put what team you're involved with in the GCA at the moment. So for example, if you're with the Wicklow under 14s, just put down Wicklow under 14 footballers. If you're with the under 16 hurlers, put down Wicklow under 16 hurlers. So if we can start putting that into the chat box, you don't have to put your name or anything down, just put the name of the team down. So under 16 footballers, under 14 footballers, for example, whatever team you're on. Okay, Kevin, we're just going to hand over to you.
Great. Hi guys, thanks very much for logging on this morning and getting out of the bed. Not the brightest of mornings for getting out of the bed on a Saturday morning. So well done for coming along. This is not a lecture. We call it a presentation, but actually it's interaction between yourselves and Paul and myself. And it's really an opportunity for everybody to learn a little bit. Paul needs to learn, I need to learn, and yourselves need to learn. Everybody who is on this webinar is here because they are on a development squad or a team with Wicklow. So that means everybody belongs on this and everybody is valued, and your opinion and your views are valued. And obviously we're limited. If we were doing this in a team meeting, we'd be asking people to speak, but we're going to do it by chat. So as Paul said, we'd ask everybody to make a contribution. So Coola is my home club, and any of you who follow hurling will know that they've had great success over the last few years. But Robert, a man by the name of Matty Kenny, came to manage them a few years ago, and when he arrived, he actually had a very good team, and but he brought it up a new level. And he called them all in one night, including the mentors, the trainers, the coaches, the fella picking up the cones, the fella who fills the water bottle. He called everybody in, and he said, guys, he says, this is like a rowing boat, and everybody here is in the rowing boat. Now you're either rowing or you're a dead weight. If you're a dead weight, get out. The same applies to every training session. You're either rowing or you're a dead weight. There are no passengers. And something as simple as this morning as whether you participate or you don't. You're here because you're valued, and we want to know what you have to say. So row or get out of the boat. So I'd encourage you all, There is, in terms of, we might ask for opinions on that, and there's an anonymous tick there. You can tick the box if you don't want to put your name on it, and that's fair enough. Nobody's expecting that you do have to do that sort of thing. Okay, so you have already had a look at, I hope, a piece on YouTube which I put together, which is going to explain really what we're talking about, and we'll go through it as we go along. And here's the first video, and I'm just going to play it. It's going to be very short, much shorter than you watched on YouTube. Okay, so that's a bunch of starlings. It's called a murmuration of starlings, and they can be 10,000, 100,000, and there's even claims that they can be up to 1 million. And the curious thing about this is, how do they all turn left and how do they all turn right? How can they possibly communicate with each other in such a huge number? And then what does that mean for us when we work as a team, as you do on your squads with Wicklow? How are you able to communicate with each other? How are you able to work as one? And in essence, what we're looking at today is, how come some teams can work as a unit and other teams just work as a bunch of individuals? So it turns out that there are people who actually have nothing better to do but look at starlings, and they've figured out that the whole flock doesn't communicate with each other at all. It's simply not possible. So they actually work in pods. So each bird communicates with the 6 birds around it, and that's all. So then you have the bird on the outside of this little flock here, and it communicates with the 6 around it, and then that travels throughout the whole flock, and that's how they're actually able to communicate. And we can actually transfer that to the pitch in terms of, say a ball coming out from the corner back, going up towards the half back, and where the ball goes, you have this group of 3 or 4 players who are communicating. And the goalkeeper doesn't have to be communicating with the full forward, but as the ball travels through the pitch, it's like that. And that's the analogy that we do. So we're just going to look at maybe a couple of sporting ones just to see other sports, how they work as groups and how they are able to transfer. But before that, we're going to look at a bunch of human beings. And I was curious to see, can human beings behave like swallows? Can they communicate in huge groups, and how do they actually do it? And here's another short little video that you've seen. So this is a somewhat unusual thing that's carried out in Spain. They're called castells. The people who do it are called castellers. And you get people from villages who practice this during a particular festival, and they all come together, and then village competes against village. And of course, the idea is to see who can build the tallest human tower. And strangely enough, they pick the smallest little girl in the village and they get her to go up the top. But in fairness to them, they do give her a helmet. It's actually quite a dangerous thing. But I think it's a fascinating way to see how people, so if you take the people at the base, they're obviously not the stars, they're not the one up the top, the little girl who gets all the praise, but that little girl it would not be possible for her to get to the top unless there was a really solid foundation from all the people down the bottom. And you can see how they're going to. The other curious thing is in terms of how come everybody's wearing colors, everybody wearing the same t-shirt, the same colors, and it's no more than a team jersey. And if you watched it on YouTube, you see the celebrations afterwards when they get to accomplish this after all the training. The celebration immense, and this pride that they have, colors and their village. So after that is, okay, well, what's this got to do with sport? Again, what are the transferables that we're able to take into sport? So here's a short example of what they do in rugby. Okay, so that's a 7-a-side rugby, but actually there were 9 players on the white team who actually got involved in that passage of play. So for me, the key word there is trust. That comes from watching a piece of rugby like this, that people running with the ball, as soon as they're tackled, just know there's somebody going to be beside them. And that's a huge thing to have on a team. And how do you get that in your team? What can you do to instill that sort of trust? And this is one of the things that we're just going to be curious about, and I'm going to ask you to think about. Another sport that features very well and is a good example is basketball. So again, a short little piece.
Nice screen to little Tony Parker with a beautiful pass. Look at that passing there. Everybody can pass. It's a requirement. Oh, great passing by San Antonio. That's just picture perfect.
So the San Antonio Spurs, I'm sure you're all experts on basketball, having watched The Last Dance on Netflix over the last few weeks. But the San Antonio Spurs were champions for many years, but that's the team from 2014, 6 years ago. And I think they're a fascinating team. And but in terms of what they do and how you can transfer it to your hurling and your football and Wicklow, I know you didn't have sound there, but if you watch it on YouTube, you will hear that the commentators are talking about you cannot outrun the basketball. The basketball is faster than everybody. Nobody can run the length of the court the same as somebody can throw it. If you want slam dunks, want another team. So the San Antonio Spurs had a particular culture. They had a particular philosophy, and they didn't do showboating. They didn't do the slam dunks. Very different to the Chicago Bulls. One of their core was, I've got a shot, but you've got a better shot. So even though you had a good shot, someone had a slightly better shot, that meant you passed the ball, and you didn't think about it, you passed the ball, because nobody cared who scored as long as the team won. The commentator makes it as everybody can pass, it's a requirement, such where they're so skillful and in terms of the percentages. So again, so that's basketball, it's a small court. What's that got to do with the hurling and football that we play? So I'm going to show you a short piece, and this is from my own club, Coola. Again, I appreciate the quality isn't great on Teams, and that's why we sent it on to YouTube, and you can have a look at it later on. It'll be a longer piece on YouTube. So what I want you to look at is the support play, how a Coola person gets a ball as soon as they get a tackle. There's always someone there to receive the ball from them.
From underneath the trees, we watch the sky, confusing starlight. Everyone cared, nobody cried, everyone loved, and nobody died. And I'm singing, hey, man, I'm alive. Hey, man, and in the air, the fireflies are only light in paradise. And show the world they were wrong. And teach them all to sing along.
Okay, I'm just going to go back to the last score of the game. And when the ball comes in, David Tracy there in the red helmet. So David Tracy is a Dublin player for about the last 10 years, very accomplished player, free taker for Dublin, free taker for Coola, penalty taker for Dublin over the years, and really top class player. But as you can see there, there's a point in it. There's 3 minutes to go. Coola are up for a point. And here you have one of the most experienced members of the team, highly confident player, highly competent player, gets a ball on the edge of the square. When he receives the ball, does he go for glory? No. So instinctively what he does is he passes the ball out to the person. Now that would have been exactly what someone on the San Antonio Spurs would do. I have a shot, but you have a better shot. David could have went for goal there. He's a very accomplished goal scorer. He certainly could have went for a point just to get them 2 points up, but he didn't. He laid the ball back, and that's what that Coola team do very well. So that was the Dublin Championship final last year, which they went on to win by 4 points. And that team is the team who were told everybody's in the boat. You're either rowing or you're a deadweight, and we don't carry deadweight. And that's what they were able to do, constantly support each other. And if you look at when you look at this on YouTube, if you watch a Coola person being tackled, you'll see there's always 2 Bridget's people attacking them, which is fantastic, and it's great to see that Bridget's would attack in 2s and attack in 3s. But the problem then is you then open up space for the other cooler players, and they use that. So the second cooler player doesn't go into the tackle. He moves away out into space because he knows the person that's being tackled will pass the ball out to him. Now, I actually think that can be actually quite a difficult thing to manage on a development squad, because this cooler team obviously are playing together for quite a while. They have a high level of trust in each other, and everybody values everybody, and everybody is willing to pass to everybody. Whereas you're in a development squad, a lot of the time you're trying to prove yourself and prove your own worth. And it can be quite challenging. Maybe you're not getting to work with people as much as you can, so you don't have that trust developed. So in terms of yourselves, when you go back into playing later on this year, and when you come back into your squads for next season, being able to think, what contribution can I make in terms of the sort of culture that we have, as you can see displayed there. So we're going to do a couple of tasks. Sorry, Paul?
Kevin, yeah, just on the San Antonio Spurs, and I know there's a task coming up there. I would have followed the San Antonio Spurs for the last couple of years. I watch NBA a lot, and as you mentioned there already, they're a fascinating team, and the culture. And I don't know if anyone watches NBA, but if you notice anything about their jersey or what's on the front of their jersey, I'd ask you to have a look at that tonight or during the day today. Just Google up San Antonio Spurs jersey, and on the front of the jersey, you'll see an icon on the front of the jersey, which really symbols perseverance and team culture. And it's one of probably the only NBA teams that have something like that on the front of their jersey. Like, you can see the Bulls there have their Bulls writing in their number, but there's an icon on the front of the San Antonio Spurs jersey, and it's all driven by their coach, a guy called Greg Popovich, a really, really top class basketball coach that really promotes team culture and perseverance. And as Kevin alluded to already, that's what the San Antonio Spurs about. There's no big stars. They don't have the finances for the big stars, but they have a real good team culture.
That's great stuff. And so we went to this task one, and we'll pick up on that again. So if you could, particularly if anybody has watched The Last Dance, you'll know the Chicago Bulls, actually, early on, and one of the coaches from the early days was when they won the championship for the first time with this particular coach, and he was asked by the press back in the dressing room, what was the plan? And he started laughing. He said, simple, give the ball to Michael Jordan and everybody else get the hell out of the way. And that was his team plan. So their culture was they had this superstar and they used him to his maximum. So the whole team was built around Michael Jordan, supplying Michael Jordan with the ball for him to do his magic. And that's what he did. San Antonio Spurs, completely different. San Antonio Spurs never bought a superstar. They didn't want a superstar. They wanted a super team. So they were quite different. But in terms of, I'm already interested in your own opinion. So use the chat there, box there. And I'd like you to share with us, in your opinion, what's the most important feature for a great team culture that will allow a team work as a unit rather than a collection of individuals? So I've put up a couple of examples, but I'm really interested in what you have to say. So populate the chat box there, and we'll see what's coming up in terms of what you think it would be really, really important. In terms of the individuals, I remember saying to someone, if you had a soccer team and there were 11 Messis on it, I said, do you think they'd be a great football team? Said, of course they'd be a great football team. And I said, yeah, but who would you put in goals? Just because you have outstanding individuals doesn't mean you've got to. Now, having said that, I Googled Messi and I came up with this fantastic photograph of him making this brilliant save during a training session. So apparently he's a great goalkeeper as well. So that didn't work. So populate there and we'll just see what comes up. Anything coming up there, Paul?
Yeah, just stuff. Some of the lads are just typing in now there. So trust coming up, which is hugely important. Commitment, loyalty, hard work, pride, honesty. We, not me, very good. Reese, respect, trust again, belief.
Okay, they're fantastic. And I have to say, if I was to pick one of them as being really challenging, it's belief. You can't teach belief. It's a really, really challenging one. And so even if you take the San Antonio Spurs, so if you would take the belief, the common belief of great basketball teams, I would suggest are extremely tall, definitely American, and more than likely African American would be the sort of image that we would have. But if you take that San Antonio Spurs teams from 2014, the captain was a guy called Tim Duncan. And he's certainly well worth a Google afterwards. And he's actually from the Virgin Isles. I bet you most of you couldn't even find him in the Virgin Isles there, but they're down around the Bahamas. He didn't even play basketball until he was about 12 or 13 years of age. He was a swimmer, and a very good swimmer. His sister went on to swim in the Olympics. But and the reason he swapped was there was only one Olympic-sized swimming pool on the Virgin Isles, and it was swept away in a hurricane. And he was looking for something to do, and someone told him, why did you try basketball? And he went on. But here you have this fella from the Virgin Isles. In addition to that, there was a guy from Paris on the team, and there was a fella from Argentina on the team. So they sort of booked this trend, or this notion that we have of this stereotype that to be a great basketball player. So in terms of having this belief, you really have to question what your beliefs are, wonder what your beliefs are. So do you have a belief in the power of Wicklow to win their league, or to win Leinster, or to win an All-Ireland? I was coaching in a school and in Greystones, and in a primary school, and I don't know what the conversation was, but I heard one of the kids say Wicklow will never win an All-Ireland. And I didn't say it to him, but actually I thought, do you know what, you're dead right as long as you believe that. And if your belief is that Wicklow won't win an All-Ireland, let me assure you, if you're on a county development squad, or when you get to an adult, if that's your belief, you're dead right, they never will. So belief is huge, so well done for that. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to the second task. And the question is simply, what makes a successful team? So you obviously have these great teams who enjoy success year after year. So what have they got that the other teams don't have? And I'd love to know your view on this. So is it a combination of great players at a particular moment in time? Or is it down to great coaching? Or is it perhaps down to great leadership? So again, if you could put your answers in the chat, what your view is, use the anonymous button there if you wish. But what is it that makes these great successful teams? For some people, it would be maybe a history of the game. So you look at Kilkenny, Tipperary in terms of hurling. Look at Kerry or maybe Dublin of more recent times, that they have this history of winning. Is that what makes them successful? Is it the amount of people who live in a county maybe that makes it successful? Because you have to have these big numbers, and people would say that certainly Dublin have an advantage with the huge population that they have. But again, what's your view? Anything coming in there, Paul?
Yeah. Practice, dedication, never giving up, pride, working for each other. Sorry, just coming in now, Kevin.
Oh, that's fantastic, yeah. And so in terms of, say, working for each other, so what's really interesting then, again, from your perspective, is how do you get a development squad to work for each other? So to go back to my original point, where I see one of the real challenges for you as players in development squad is you're always trying to prove yourself. Because if you're not proving yourself, you run the risk of being released from the squad, and that's the reality of it. So that actually puts quite a bit of pressure on you to maybe behave, what we would call selfish. I actually don't think it's selfish at all. I think you're just trying to do your best. So how do we challenge that, and how do we make it a team that's willing to work for each other, even potentially sacrificing your own game for the benefit of the team? And that's a really big question for teenagers to ask themselves, and for a team to ask themselves. But really great teams, that's exactly what they do. That's what David Tracy did when he decided to pass that ball back. That's what really good teams do. So nobody expects you to have this at 14, 15, 16 years of age. But in order to be a great team player, now's the time to start thinking about it. So that's really good. Good stuff. Okay, task 3. Okay, we only have 4, so we're on to task 3. What and who are the team is the question I would ask. So lots of people would say that the current Dublin football team are, I think everybody would agree they're a great football team. Some people are claiming that they're the greatest football team of all time, and that remains to be seen whether they are or not. But I'm curious as to who are the team. So Dublin won 5 All-Irelands in a row. They played 7 All-Ireland finals because they had 2 replays. So 45 players played throughout those championships with Dublin. So my question is, who are the team? And I'd like your answer. So if you could give an answer, A, B, C, or D, who do you think are the football team? Is it all 45 players? Is it the coaches who are through this? Is it Jim Gavin? Is it the team culture that this Dublin team obviously have? Or in terms of who is the great football team, is it the core group of players who played most of the matches? So there are a core group of players who invariably featured, and there are players who drift in and out and get a few games and don't get a few games. So I know a guy who was on it for probably all of them 5 years. He got dropped in the last one, actually. So he was in it for the 4, halfway through the 5th season, and he got dropped from it. You wouldn't even know his name. He probably got to play about 5 league games and never played in a championship game. So was he part of the team? So fill in your answers there. And so what I'm really curious about is to see whether it's the individuals, whether it's the group of players, whether it's the leaders, or whether it's the culture. What's your view?
Yeah, loads of answers coming in there, Kevin. Seems to be siding towards A and C, just based on what the lads are putting in. I don't see any Bs, mostly predominantly A and predominantly C. A few Ds as well. I don't see the coaches coming up a lot on it.
Really interesting. I heard a comment that coaches need players, but players don't need coaches. And that's something coaches have to pay attention to. Coaches like me have to pay attention to. The game will take off. You turn up and you have no coaches. You still have a game with your players. Coach turns up, no players. So that's really interesting. And so Jim Gavin of that team I think he'd agree with you. And he would say, I'm just a facilitator. I'm just here to allow the players express themselves on the pitch. Now that's a fantastic thing to hear all together, and maybe that's where his success came from, empowering them 45 people over the years to lead. In terms of team culture, one of the great challenges for any coach is to create a team culture, such as existed with the Spurs or the Bulls or Dublin or Wicklow Hurlers, to create that team culture. But I think in truth, you can't create it. I don't think you can make it happen. I don't think you can teach it. Someone said culture is contagious. It's a bit like COVID-19. It just spreads. And you as a player have a role to play in how that spreads, that culture. So well done on them answers. They're really good. Okay. So in terms of our last task, and this is a challenging one for you, and it's me and my team culture. So what I want you to do is, okay, you're not going to put this in the chat, okay? So if you have a pen and paper, write it down. If not, you can just do it in your head. I want you to ask yourself the following questions, and I want you to score yourself out of 10. So off you go in your own time. Preferably write it down, because what I'd like you to do is just to be able to reflect on this. So we're not sharing this. We're not putting it into the chat, because what I want you to do is have a look at yourself. So very often coaches are having a look at you, other players are having a look at you, but the real learning is when you have a look at yourself. And that's the only place change or development is ever going to come, is when you're having a look at yourself. So in terms of scoring yourself, so I train as hard as possible when I'm in the county squad. So how do you mark that out of 10? Do you compare it against other people? I would suggest you don't. Okay, so we tend to compare it against, so we might think, who's the guy who trains the hardest? Okay, he's 10. I don't really, so maybe I'm a 7 or 8. So what I'd say to you is, think of the hardest session you ever trained in. That's 10. Okay, think of the worst one you ever did, where you weren't bothered, or maybe you weren't feeling well, or whatever it was going, and there's a 1 or 2. So overall, where's your training at out of 10? And 10 is as hard as you can go. Rate yourself between 1 and 10. I always encourage players around me. Some guys are quiet. Some people are introverts. They're not loud. They don't shout. I have certainly worked with fantastic players, and I've never heard them on a pitch, because they just do their own thing. That's their personality. That's fine. But you can be encouraging in a soft, quiet way. So I'm not talking about being loud, but I am talking about, giving that good body language in terms of being encouraging. So again, score yourself. Positive influence on the team. again, score yourself. Again, you don't have to be loud. The positive influence on the team is turning up early for training, without a doubt. Not rushing off the pitch at the end. Being nice to someone, going out of your way to say hello to someone who might be one of the quiet lads on the team. That's a positive influence on the team. Not engaging in negative talk, not saying this is a waste of time, this is a load of rubbish. Why do we do that? That's all positive. Again, rate yourself. So in terms of rating yourself on these as you're going through them, don't use the number 5. Because when we get into this sort of rating game, we tend to go middle of the road. I'm not bad, I'm not great. So I suggest you don't use the number 5. Push yourself to go either side of it, because this is really examining yourself. I practice my skills constantly in my own time. This is where champions are born. And it's just the fact of the matter is, people who are at the top of their game, they just practice and practice and practice and practice. Turning up with your club training, turning up with the county training, it just isn't going to do it in terms of skills. And in terms of football and in terms of hurling, they are highly, highly skillful games that you're going to need. And the last one, I always think team before I think me. Now, I think that is absolutely huge. And, in terms of the stage of life that you're at, in terms of being a teenager, trying to show your worth on a county squad, that's a big one. And you may not be there. So if that's actually 2, so what? Because that just shows you now have a huge area for growth over the next few years. So don't beat yourself up about it. Don't think that makes you, not a good team player at this stage of your career. That's a big one. And, if we were to talk to David Tracy about his last move in the county final, you could find that maybe took David Tracy 15 years to get to that stage of where he's at, where he has the confidence to be able to do something like that, where he has the trust in his teammates to be able to do something like that. So in terms of your scores, so you have 5 there, so you have a max of 50. Add them all up and see what you get out of your 50. And as I say, we're not going to ask you to share them because that's not the point. In terms of rating yourself, so when I say rate yourself, I'm talking about rating your behavior, not you as a human being, because you can't rate yourself as a human being. It's simply not possible. You're too complex. Human beings are too complex. I'm not asking you to, so if you got 42 to maybe one of the other guys to 38, that makes you better than him. It doesn't work like that. So I'm not asking you to even rate yourself as a player, because what you call a 7, somebody else calls an 8. So the numbers don't really matter. All this is an opportunity for you to have a look at yourself. And what we're giving you is an opportunity to have some data. Here's some data supplied by you, and nobody in the world knows you like you. Coach sees you how many times? They don't know you like you know you. You know you, and this is your marking. So this is our last task, and to be honest, it's the most important. So you've got data, okay? But the question is, what are you going to do with it? And that's where you get champions. Champions take information like this and they do something about it. They don't just have it as a piece of information, they do something about it. So what I want you to do is pick one of them 5. Be it train hard as possible and encourage players, positive influence, practice your skills, or the way you think, your mentality. I want you to pick one of them and only one of them. And then I want you to write down to yourself, or at least think to yourself, and write it down later on if you don't have a pen in front of you. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to improve the one thing that you would like to improve? How are you going to do it? If you're happy enough to throw it in the box and tick anonymous and stick it in the chat, it would be really interesting. Don't feel under pressure to do it, but it'd be really interesting to see which one that you think would be how you would positively influence the team culture by you improving. So in terms of you improving the team culture, the only way you could do that is by improving you. Because remember, it's contagious. And whatever you do will filter through the team, and that's what we're talking about here. So Paul, anybody brave enough to stick into the chat in terms of picking the one that they would like to work on?
Just waiting now, Kevin. There's
okay.
Nothing in at the moment yet.
So guys, just if you feel free, and it's no big deal if you don't, but feel free to take the anonymous, throw it in there, what you think. And we're just at the end of the presentation, and we're going to move on. Paul, has Matthew signed in there?
Yeah, Matthew's in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, okay. Guys, I'm going to wrap up and I'm going to hand over to Paul, who's going to have a chat with Matthew. So the one thing I'd like you to take from this is this questioning. Always questioning yourself, always being curious. How can I be a better player? How can I be a better person? What am I going to do? And it's all about what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? Everybody on this chat, you all have your own strengths and you all have your own talents. Football and hurling is one of your talents and your strengths, because you wouldn't be on a county development squad unless it wasn't. So you have this talent or you have these strengths. So the question for me is, what are you going to do with these strengths and what are you going to do with the talents? And that is completely up to you and nobody else. Nobody else can make you do it. And to be honest, people's ability to encourage you to do it are quite limited. It is completely down to you as to what you're going to do with this. Okay, so Paul, I'm going to hand you over to Matthew to take care over from here.
Yeah, there's just the answers coming there as well, Kevin.
Okay,
just on that, encouraging. Alan is encouraging players around me. Practice skills by Charlie. Be a positive influence, James. Owen, encourage players around me. Porrick, be a positive influence to players around me. And Reese then encourage players around me. So a lot of encouraging players around themselves, which is hugely important in a team culture.
It's really important, and that takes a bit of bravery, particularly at 14, 15, 16 years of age. It takes a little bit of bravery to speak up. But let me tell you, everybody loves a bit of encouragement and a bit of praise. I do. I've no doubt you do. So if you're the person, and it's contagious, if your team becomes a place where you get encouraged and where you get praise, it's fantastic. And it's the complete opposite to where you're criticized. And I would ask people to pay attention to, do I criticize people on the pitch? Do I do that? That's toxic stuff, absolute toxic stuff. And if you see someone behaving like that, rather than you criticize them, you do something positive. So fantastic to see that that's where the thinking is. That's great, Bob.
If you always go back to Alex Ferguson said that the two most easiest words and the two most positive words he ever could have used as a coach or a manager was "well done." They don't cost anything, and they've a huge influence on a player. Like and we probably, even as coaches, we don't use that enough. But you've got to be receptive to communication like that, and like well done is obviously you're going to take that on board positively. But like if you have a good team culture and somebody gives you an instruction or something in relation to positivity or even moving around the pitch, if you're receptive to that, it's going to be really, really beneficial to the team.
That's fantastic. Great stuff.
Okay, so we have Matthew there, and just firstly, we appreciate Matthew coming on the call. I rang him during the week, and he had no problem coming on the call. And as I said at the start of the presentation, Matthew has come through the GCA over the last couple of years from under 13, and as I said, he represented Wicklow under 20 footballers this year. So I'm just going to ask Matthew a few questions on it, and again, thanks for joining us, Matthew. So just the first question I have for you, if you could meet yourself, your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give him, Matthew?
Thanks again for having me on, Paul, and hope everyone's well, lads. I'd basically just say to everyone that you should treat every training as a game, because I always say if you're going through the motions, training's going to be the best practice you have for a match situation. And I wasn't the best man for training myself. It would be a laugh and a joke sometimes, and as I'm training now with the older lads, the senior type of lads, and under 20s this year, it's been you kind of realise the most important thing is the training, because it's the most intensity you'd have all week. So even then, the next point is always stay motivated. That you can never be too good enough, or you can't really be complacent, because there's someone out there that could be better, and you never know how high you can reach until you try. I used to be, anyway, speaking from experience, that I used to often at 16, 15 dwell on the mistakes, and kind of the game flies past you, and next minute it's half time and you mightn't be on the ball as much as you might want to, especially as if you're a forward. So my piece of advice probably be just focus on the next ball and keep the mindset as if the next ball is the most important thing, and get all the things, the negative out of your mind and think of the positive. And just keep positive throughout the game. It's a tough one to practice during these times, especially. But even you gotta keep motivated, and I say no lazy thoughts, because again, you can't presume to be the best player if you're not going to put the work in, because you see the likes of Dublin and Kerry, they're 5-6 times a week out, even just kicking a ball against the wall, which mightn't seem that important, but the basics are what wins you games, even at the highest level. I'd always say set goals for yourself that you have something to achieve, so that are realistic and that you have a chance of making. And always be proud to wear the Wicklow jersey. It's something that the group of lads I've worked with over the last number of years, we've always never treated, and I always feel like some people treat it for granted when they put on the Wicklow jersey that it's just Wicklow, that anyone can wear it, but it's not. You look at teams gone before us, that it's an honour to wear the Wicklow jersey, and something that I'm greatly proud of, even having the jerseys here. So that's what I'd probably say for the advice in it.
Yeah, very good, Matthew. A really, really good answer. Just in relation to motivation, I know I'm going back on what you were saying, but like, would you've noticed a huge difference in your motivation, like from a 15 or 16-year-old to are now? Like, because I would remember you playing, like, and you were a good juvenile at 16, but I would have known similar players at that level at 16, but you seem to be more motivated now as a 20-year-old compared to when you were 16. Like, would that be the case, or has it developed from the time you were 16 to 20 a lot more than when you were a 16-year-old?
Yeah, I was a bit naive as a youngster. I kind of thought I could breeze through the trainings and just get along with it, just to turn up, say I was there really at 15, 16, which it never really got me anywhere. And I realised that when I came up to the under 17 squad when I was only barely 15, and I felt like, geez, I may cop on here. And ever since, on the very first trainings I had when Kevin O'Brien, ever since I've kind of told myself there's no really taking second best from anyone. And ever since, I've always said to myself, you got really a 24-hour athlete sometimes during the year, that you have to look after yourself, look what you eat, exercise, and practice. Practice is the most important thing you can be doing, eating well and physically well. But if you're not doing the basic skills, and it's something that I always try to do at least every day, and I've got good people around me, that friends and family, that will always push me on, that the days like today, maybe that's raining and it's a bit cold, that you can still go up and practice for, you don't even need too long, like a 20-minute training, and 15-minute just kicking it off the wall is perfect.
Yeah, very good, very good. Next one I'm going to ask you, Matthew. How did you personally benefit from your time with the squads and I suppose the under-17s and playing for Wicklow over the years?
Yeah, again, massive confidence. I wouldn't say I'd be an outspoken type of person. I'd be laid back in a way that I'd let anyone else really talk. And when you put the Wicklow jersey on, you feel like maybe you're a completely different person than what you are when you're at home, or maybe you're in school. And then I've always gained confidence playing for Wicklow. And happily enough, now I've met some great lads in the team, and even the managers have always gone. I've never really fell out with anyone, and I still talk to most of them all today still. And like, playing on the development squads, you improve your skills with the training. It's a very high standard, and the one thing I'll always say to all the lads in here is just keep going, because you might notice it at 15, 16, but the time you hit 18, 19, that maybe you're coming against lads who are in their 30s even, that you realise, geez, these haven't had the training that we've had, and we're very lucky to have the facilities we have in Ballinakil and the managers we have, that we can practice our skills. And you gain great experience from playing on the development squads. You get the crack on the buses, or even the blitzes. Like, I've been lucky to have some very good victories against the top teams in the country. Like, we've bet Tyrone and Dublin, and we've bet Meath. There's many teams we've beaten nearly everyone over the course of the 3 or 4 years in the development squad. So it's been a very enjoyable experience for me, and it's something that I was very happy that I took part in.
Very good, very good. Who were the people who helped you develop as a player, and how did they influence you?
Well, definitely my family would be the main one, because you'd be at home and you'd be sitting on the couch and you'd be asked, do you want to go even outside for 5-10 minutes to kick a ball, and you're like, I'm kind of comfy sitting down eating something, watching the Netflix or something, and you'd be not sure, you didn't really have the energy, or you might have been working all day that you come home and you'd be a bit lazy about it. But you know, I've always had people around me to push me on, and I've always really been grateful to them, because even my friends, you know, there'd be 5 or 6 of us heading up to the pitch. Even we could be up there hours upon hours having point kicking competitions and whatever, anything at all really, even just to talk and kick ball is. And even when you're in training, and or if you're even outside of training, if you're on a night out maybe or something, your teammates, they always motivate you to do your best, and your managers as well, that when you may think they're getting on to you, and they're really just trying to get the best out of you, because they know there's more in you, and you can never really peak. You know, there's always something left in the tank, and they always want to put 110% in, especially when you're playing for Wicklow.
Yeah, very good. Like, and you know, and I know you alluded to like your family and your friends, and I suppose the coaches are really important. You know, in club and county, and you know, if you don't have them support structures, you know, it can get difficult, or you know, your motivation can wane. So they're really important. And the last one I'm going to ask you, Matthew, is could you tell us about a time when you were really challenged and got through it in relation to football? Or...
Yeah, I've been fairly lucky that I haven't really had any serious injuries, touch wood, of yet. So I know that's an extremely tough time when you're kind of on your own in the dark, trying to get back fit, and you're watching everyone else train, and you probably wish you were back. And I'm lucky that I haven't really had an injury that's too serious, that I haven't ruled out for too long. But one that I've always stuck out to me is, again, that kind of on all 3 points, is when it was my very first year coming up to playing under 17, and I kind of got a bit complacent, and I'd been starting, and I kind of just went through the motions really. And I remember it was 2 weeks before our first championship game, and I didn't even think that I'd be dropped. And then it was a practice match, and I was dropped. So I deserved to be dropped. I was 15 and fairly naive about thinking that my place was nailed down. And then I kind of realised when I was watching everyone play, I was like, I need to cop on here, that, you know, I haven't been good enough the last 5 or 6 months, which you can't really do at this level, because you'll get shown up on the big stage if you're not working to 120%. So I kind of got on with it. I didn't really complain. I realised I deserved to be dropped, and I had no problem with it. So I was playing poorly, and so I just decided from then on, I trained hard, and I played well in a couple of matches. I done extra bits at home to give me that extra bit, that little percent bonus that hopefully could get me back into the team before, and prove to the manager, to Kevin at the time, that I was good enough to play, and that I wanted to be there. So I started, and I made my way into the team, and ever since really I've never left it, which has been one thing that I've been very proud of, is that if I was probably 15, 16 and saying that, geez, I'm playing a year older, I'd be happy enough to make the bench or the panel, even for the match day squad, and just to be experienced for my own. But I wanted to push on, and I didn't really wanted age not to be a factor in me starting or not. So I knew if I put the effort in, I definitely would have been there. And I just worked hard really all the way through, and in the games I gave everything until I couldn't anymore. And thankfully now I've played a good few games for Wicklow at a very good level, so I'm very, very happy, and even for the club as well. So
Yeah, very good. Like, and you alluded to, Kevin being a manager, and I think I would have played with Kevin, and I obviously know him fairly well. And I think that's as one thing as Kevin as a coach, is he'll challenge players, and if players are not motivated and doing the best, like Kevin would have played obviously for Wicklow all his life and was an all-star, but like he gave, every time he played for Wicklow, he gave everything, and I think he expects that from every player. And he treats Wicklow like they were a Kerry or a Dublin, and like that. That's when you come in to play for Wicklow, it's the same as coming in playing for Kerry or Dublin, like. And that's what I like about Kevin and his motivation to the cause. And you could see by that team that in the minor there, that couple of years ago when they drew with Kildare, even this year in the under-20s, like I know that's not the team, but the year before, but like they were competitive for so long, and he puts in high standards with teams, and he expects that, and and if you buy into that, and you give what you're after saying, you can if you can be the best you can be, you'll get on well on any team, like what I mean, with any coach. So
definitely.
So I appreciate that, Matthew, and a really insightful view into your journey in the academy squad, and I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a happy man this week with Liverpool winning the league. So, some of the lads are popping in the chat box there, so I'm presuming you'll be hoping for a red win there with Tinahely in the senior championship later in the year. So I wish you the best for the rest of the year
thanks very much
with your club, and I look forward to you back with the county next year. Kevin, thanks very much, Matthew. So that really concludes everything. Kevin, have you anything to come in on that just before we finish up?
Yeah, when I was young, I was a Liverpool fan, but I grew out of soccer. But anyway, Kenny Dalglish, when you just obviously 30 years which is incredible, because when I was growing up, Liverpool were just invincible. And it's incredible that they became quite the opposite for so long. Nobody, and Dalglish said, who could have predicted it would have taken 30 years? Everybody thought it would take a couple of years before Liverpool getting top. It took 30 years. But Kenny Dalglish said, great dressing rooms make great teams. And he says the Liverpool team of the last few years is a great dressing room. And in terms of the culture and in terms of how you think and how you behave, that's what makes a great dressing room. So when you go back to training, I would ask you to have that in your mind. Your attitude is hugely, hugely important. So that's from me, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kevin. And again, just a big thanks to Matthew, and a big thanks to Kevin. I know Kevin put a lot of work into putting this together, and I think it gave a really, really good overview of team culture and the importance of we. So that concludes the presentation. I hope to have a few more of these over the next number of months on different topics until we get back on the pitch. As I said, obviously you're going to be all busy with your clubs and stuff like that, so I don't think there'll be any GCA outdoor activity as regards until the club is over. Now that's not confirmed yet, but I don't think there will be. I think the club is going to be ran first, and then the GCA will be back. So hopefully we'll be back when the club fixtures are over. But I will be putting on a few more of these, myself and Philip Campion, who's involved with the hurling. So I'd encourage everyone to tune into them. I will have recordings as well if you can't get into them. So again, thanks for your attention this morning, and we'll talk to you in the coming weeks. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.